we still do. We still do. We still do.
We still do after all this time at the altar. I alter my mind and vow to God I love you till he make his return. The rain should be the least of your concern. Under God's umbrella, I promise to provide and preserve his word and to serve your mind and spirit. Let me drive the boat. I promise I'ma steer it. The devil cannot get near it. You'll know this soon as you hear it. You need me, I need you. Even after the altar, we still do.
Think about it. Think about how many people intentionally cross boundary lines, or like when somebody crosses that boundary line, all you do is just set a new one. Like you don't help them stay to that boundary. You know what I'm saying? And so we just get used to
rewriting it,
as a
making a new
kid,
line.
we make a new line. You know what I'm saying? And part of the problem in that is, especially when we talk about like boundaries with families and things like that, there becomes this enmeshment, and that blurs the line of like where our family ends, you know, like where our marriage ends and our family on the other side of that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's almost like you have to create like different boundaries for different types of relationship. I remember doing an exercise in class. It was like we were talking about different family theories, you know, like how people see families basically. And so there was one particular theory that I was fascinated with, and it was about this guy. His name is Salvador Minuchin. And basically like he grew up with his family structured a certain way. Like I think his like dad, he went to go work, mom took care of the house or whatever. And I think he ended up having to go through the Great Depression. So like there was like everything was structured and it was nice and it was neat. Like everybody knew what they were doing. Like parents, they made decisions together. You know, the dad, he went out, provided. The mom took care of the kids. She was a part of all the things. And then kids are kids. Like if we talk and stay out, you know what I'm saying? Like y'all not in this. But the Great Depression, like I believe that was it. Like it turned his family upside down. His dad lost his job. You know what I'm saying? And then that affected him. That affected the dad. And he showed up a certain way in his family. And so what he found out is like that when the family is structured a certain way and we understand that structure, you know what I'm saying? We can operate in a way that we know who's who. We know, you know, what, like, okay, so when we talk about husband, wife, we know that this operates a certain way, make decisions. We keep the kids out of the business when it comes to those type of decisions, whatever that may look like. But then we also know what it looks like when, you know, father's talking to or son, or father talking to daughter, whatever. We have identity of what it looks like. And so it's almost like these boundary lines of this particular relationship. And then there's a bigger boundary line around like us, our kids. And then there's like outside of that boundary line is like close relatives. You know what I'm saying? Like sisters, brothers, uncles, and whoever else is close. And then there's another one. And so like there needs to be an understanding of who's in what. You know what I'm saying? That was fascinating to me when I was in school, because it's like for our family, the final decision comes from mom and dad, not father-in-law. You know what I'm saying? Like I remember talking to a couple, and the husband was so frustrated because he was trying to please his wife. And he found out that a lot of the wife's decisions was based on what she was taught by her father. Understandable. But currently, he would say things, speak things into their relationship and dictate how they showed up. So much so that it influenced the way the husband was. And so now he has this resentment towards his wife. And it's really just a matter of like, that's like we love him, but he needs to be out of the decisions for us and our kids. He can have influence, but he can't have the final say. And so boundaries help us understand who has the final say.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to who's making decisions, like how does it look when we allow our kids to make choices about their outfits? What's permitted? Who has say on that? What's allowed? You know what I'm saying? It really helps us have like these boundaries. And so I don't know. I was just thinking about like us as kids redrawing these lines in the sand and
That was a
not
good one.
seeing how that really impacts us today, because a lot of people don't like feel confident to speak up and set boundaries because they feel about setting boundaries is aggressive.
Mm.
When in reality, setting boundaries is assertive. Not setting boundaries, a lot of people, are passive because they allow people to define where their boundary is.
Mhm.
And that's where we find ourselves in more resentment.
And then you build I love how you shared that illustration about when you were kids and how you would draw this line in the sand, and then you would just skip right on over that because that's the reality of what it looks like with a lot of us in terms of the boundaries that we set that are not being honored or not being expressed, so that it's clear that this is my boundary line. Don't cross this. I'm not making a new line. I'm not moving my boundary line for you. Stay back. You know what I mean? I think one of the first boundaries that I want to talk about is boundaries that just personally we have in our marriage that helps us to protect our marriage, because you talked about that fence, right? That protects us in our union.
Mhm.
And the first one I want to talk about is opposite sex. The
Okay.
boundaries we have with the opposite sex. For us, this was a boundary that we had to talk about early on in our marriage. And one of them was like, okay, you're not going to be nowhere with the opposite sex, because not because of an insecurity, but because of wisdom, right? In the Bible, it tells us in Romans, don't let your good be spoken evil of. And if somebody see you out eating lunch with somebody, for one, that would actually look bad, right? But also because of the honor and the respect that you have for me and the potential of what can happen with you allowing that kind of intimacy with someone to be out. There's no reason for you to be out eating lunch with the opposite sex by yourself. But that is one of the boundaries that we set. I also think not sharing and conveying intimate things about our marriage, emotionally intimate things with the opposite sex, because a lot of times we're just looking at the physical aspect of an affair, but emotional affairs are real and they happen often. And social media is a huge part of that. So those are some boundaries with the opposite sex that we have set early on in our marriage.
Mhm.
Did I miss anything on the opposite sex?
No, I think just reiterating that this is something that we set for our marriage.
For our marriage, yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because there might be other couples who might feel different, and whatever works for them works for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, realizing that we set this in place, and so I think it's even good. It's even good to note just the differences in when we were setting that boundary, because it was something that more so you were like, this ain't it, and me, I was just like, but I'm cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
We're just
Like,
friends. No big deal.
you know what I'm saying? And so
It was actually work related.
right, and so
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, in that, it's like, okay, you like, no, it like it makes me it makes me feel a type of way, but I also want to safeguard our marriage, and that was your intention for bringing that up. And for me, it's like, I'm used to this. Like, you come from primarily the church world. You know what I'm saying? Like me, I didn't really take my walk with Christ serious until I got in California. So I got not 18 years because I was a kid, but at least a good 5 or 6 years where like I'm spending time, you know what I'm saying, like with just friends. I'm not even talking about like like
Genuine
chicks
friendship.
that you know what I'm saying, like genuine friendships. And so that was a huge adjustment for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And I know oftentimes when we're in those situations where it's like we experience that differently, oftentimes that causes friction in the relationship, because it's like, well, I don't see this as a problem and you see it as a problem. And oftentimes we just lean in marriages, oftentimes we lean on what we feel and what we think, when in reality, the most important part is like, I don't ever want to do something that's going to make my spouse feel like I don't consider her or her emotions in the decisions I make.
Never and always gonna love you and always. No doubt you're my blessing. Ain't no second guessing. No one can separate without a good thing. Even after the altar, it's marriage in motion.